Abu Talib was the uncle, literally was the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, but more, in reality, was more like his father, his foster father. Abu Talib, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was younger, Abu Talib used to take care of all of his children and the family. He used to feed all of them, so they would all have food together. And when the food was served, all the kids would run out. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because even from a young age, from his birth, he was someone who was shy and humble. He was a shy and humble kid. And so he would kind of wait off to the side, and all the other kids would run, kind of like Ramadan iftars, right? All the other kids would run to the plate, get all the food, eat to their fill, and then when they were done, when they were stuffed, then the Prophet ﷺ, when they walked away, would slowly make his way over and would pick up whatever scraps were left. And Abu Talib used to see this, and he loved the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ so much. Abu Talib had so much love for the Prophet ﷺ that what he would do was he would pick out all the good chunks of food, all the good chunks of meat, and he would set it aside on a plate and he would put it behind himself. So he would call the kids to come eat, and all the kids would come eat, and they would say, well, I guess we just don't have good meat today. And they would start eating, and Abu Talib would say, yeah, Muhammad, come here. And Muhammad ﷺ would come, and he would look, and he would see this plate of food, and he would smile, and he would eat it with his uncle Abu Talib. Whenever Abu Talib went on a business expedition, or any kind of expedition, any kind of travel, he would leave his entire family at home, his kid, his spouse, his kids, his nephews, everyone would stay home. But guess who would come with Abu Talib? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. There was so much love that Abu Talib had. And even after the message of Islam came to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Abu Talib said what? He said, I don't believe, but I will support you and I will defend you until my dying day. That I don't believe in what you're bringing. This is from the family of the Prophet ﷺ. He's saying, I don't believe, I love you, I'm not going to accept what you're bringing, but I will protect you until I die. And everyone in the city of Mecca, when they would try to harass the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when they would try to torture him, they would do things here and there. They would rough him up here and there, ﷺ, but they knew that they couldn't take it too far because Abu Talib would be the person they would have to answer to. That in order to get to the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Talib was there. And then Abu Talib becomes very ill, very sick. And it becomes clear that these are his final days. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ loves his uncle, his foster father. He has immense love for Abu Talib. And he goes to his uncle and he says, my uncle, please. He said, just accept the message. Accept that there is only one God worthy of worship and that I'm the messenger. Just say it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to pray or do anything. Just say it so I can take this little bit, this little statement you have, so I can take it on the court, in the court on the day of judgment and tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, Ya Rabbi, I have this statement from him that he is Muslim, forgive his sins, and just give me something to work with. And Abu Talib is surrounded by all of his peers, his colleagues, and they're saying, Ya Abu Talib, are you going to give up on the religion of your forefathers? Are you going to end it now? Right now, before you pass away, you're going to cut off everything from your history, from your lineage, from your past? You're going to do all that? And they're mocking him and they're harassing him. But finally they get to Abu Talib. And Abu Talib tells Muhammad ﷺ, he says, no, I can't accept it. And he dies not only leaving the Prophet ﷺ, but leaving him shattered because he didn't accept the message of Islam in front of his own eyes. So the Prophet ﷺ was so distraught that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had to reveal a verse, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. That, Ya Rasulullah, I know you tried your best, but you are not going to be able to guide whoever you love. That's not how this works. You're not going to be able to just walk into the people that you love and say, please accept, and they'll accept. Sometimes the people that you love the most are going to be the ones that hurt you. وَلَكِنَ اللَّهُ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Rather, Allah is the one who gives guidance to whomever He wills, to whomever asks for it, to whomever wants it. This lesson in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. So imagine this, his wife passes away. His wife of 20 years, the mother of his children. Then 6 to 8 months later, his uncle passes away. Someone who was basically his foster father. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would cry when Fath Mecca came. When the Prophet ﷺ returned from Medina to Mecca, he would shed tears. There's a famous story that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, after Fath Mecca, brought his father, Abu Quhafa. Abu Quhafa was very old. They said everything about him was white. His hair, his eyelashes, his beard, everything was white. And he walked in. This is the father of Abu Bakr. And he walked into the haram, and he went to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq went to the Prophet and he said, Ya Rasulullah, my father wants to take shahada with you. And this is after a lifetime of work, a lifetime. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is very old at this point. The Prophet ﷺ is very old. This is after the conquest of Mecca. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ starts to teach Abu Bakr's father the shahada. He starts teaching him the shahada. And for those of you who maybe don't understand what a big deal this is, ask any convert in the room what it would mean to them if their parents accepted Islam. What it would mean to them, what it would mean to their heart and life if their parents, or ask anyone in the room who has relatives who are non-Muslim or family members that are not, ask them what it would mean to them if one day their family member came to them and said, I want to accept this religion. How happy they would be. And so as the Prophet ﷺ is giving Abu Quhafa the shahada, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq starts crying. And so the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says what any of us would say. He says, you're tears of happiness, right, Abu Bakr? Tears of happiness? Very excited for him? And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq replies, La ya Rasulullah, tears of sadness. I'm crying because I'm sad. And the Prophet ﷺ says, why are you sad? And he says, because what I would give, Ya Rasulullah, to replace my father with your uncle today. That my father, my own father, who I would love to be Muslim, what I would give out of my love for you, because I knew that you loved Abu Talib so much, what I would give that you would have your uncle here today taking the shahada instead of my father. I would give it in a second. So he was sad because he knew that the Prophet ﷺ was damaged inside after this. We're talking about emotional damage. We're talking about the Prophet ﷺ being put through stress after stress after stress, trial after tribulation, death of family members. And you know what? Even after all this, you know what would happen to the Prophet when he would walk in the street? So his wife dies, and then his uncle dies. And then because his uncle passes away, all the young thugs of Mecca, all the young, not the older ones, because the older ones still have respect for Abu Talib. The young ones who didn't know Abu Talib would go and they would start physically abusing the Prophet ﷺ. This is where you read the harshest stories. After the death of Abu Talib is where you read the harshest stories of how they used to beat up the Prophet ﷺ. The ones where they used to literally gang up on him, take sticks and beat him and leave him bruised and bloody in the alleyway. This is after the death of Abu Talib because the young guys didn't know who Abu Talib was. They didn't have that respect for him. But when the Prophet ﷺ would walk in the marketplace, dejected, hurt, not knowing where to go from here, not knowing who to turn to, not knowing who was his support anymore, the people would yell after him and say, who believes he's a prophet now? Do you see? He's cursed. Everyone around him is dying. So on top of the family emotional trauma he's going through, now he's being ridiculed and mocked by his people because of those deaths. So what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How did the situation become fixed? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that nothing could cure the heartache of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam other than meeting him. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to meet him on the famous journey al-Isra wal-Ma'raj. But even more amazing is the gift, the medication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Prophet ﷺ on this journey. He gave him as-salah.